The Crucible of Souls. Chapter 1, The Awakening. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ethereal sky in hues of orange and purple. The air was still, the only sound the gentle rustling of leaves in the monastery's courtyard. Dorian sat cross-legged beneath a gnarled old oak tree, his eyes closed, his breath even. The cool evening breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and the distant hum of the monastery's energy generators. "Focus, Dorian," Elder Thomas's voice, a gentle rumble, broke the silence. "Reach deep within yourself. Feel the energy of the cosmos flowing through you." Dorian nodded, his brow furrowing in concentration. He had been training in the Silver Monastery since he was a child, learning the ways of the monks, honing his body and mind. But this exercise was different. Elder Thomas had sensed something within him, a spark of potential that needed to be nurtured. Dorian reached out with his senses, feeling the subtle vibrations of the world around him. The rustling leaves, the chirping insects, the distant hum of machinery. It was all a symphony of energy, interconnected and flowing. He closed his eyes tighter, delving deeper into his consciousness. And then he saw it, a blinding flash of light, followed by a swirling vortex of colors. He felt himself being pulled into the vortex, his body tingling with energy. Images flashed before his eyes, starships hurtling through space, vast nebulae glowing with otherworldly light, and a pair of piercing blue eyes filled with love and pain. Dorian gasped, his eyes snapping open. He was back in the courtyard, the sun now fully set. The stars twinkled above, a reminder of the vastness of the universe. "What did you see, Dorian?" Elder Thomas asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Dorian hesitated, unsure how to explain the kaleidoscope of images that had flooded his mind. "I saw everything," he finally said. "The stars, the galaxies, the past, the future." Elder Thomas nodded slowly, a knowing smile on his face. "You have seen the truth, Dorian. You are the last of the Starborne, an ancient race with the power to connect with the cosmos." Dorian's heart pounded in his chest. He had always felt different, as if he didn't quite belong in this peaceful monastery. Now he knew why. He was the last of his kind, a relic of a forgotten age. "But what does it mean?" Dorian asked, his voice trembling. "Why have I been given this power?" Elder Thomas placed a hand on Dorian's shoulder, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "That, my boy, is for you to discover. But remember this, your power is a gift, not a burden. Use it wisely, and you may change the fate of the galaxy." As the night deepened, Dorian sat in silent contemplation, the weight of his destiny heavy upon his shoulders. He looked up at the stars, a million pinpricks of light against the velvet sky. He knew that his journey had just begun, a journey that would take him far beyond the walls of the Silver Monastery and into the heart of the cosmos. Chapter 2, The Call of Destiny. Dorian awoke with a start, his sheets damp with sweat. The dream had been the same as always, a swirling vortex of stars, a haunting pair of blue eyes, and a voice whispering his name. It was a call he could no longer ignore. He packed a small bag, his few belongings rattling against the worn leather. A small data pad, a gift from Elder Thomas, blinked with a coded message from Alora, the mysterious sorceress who had contacted him after his awakening. Her words were cryptic, but the urgency in her tone was unmistakable. "Dorian," she had written, "your destiny awaits beyond the monastery walls. Seek me out in the city of Neohaven, on the moon of Triton. Time is of the essence." With a heavy heart, Dorian bid farewell to Elder Thomas, who offered a reassuring smile and a simple piece of advice. "Trust your instincts, young Starborne. The universe will guide your path." Dorian boarded a sleek hovercraft, its anti-grav engine humming softly as it lifted off the ground. He gazed out the window as the monastery shrank into the distance, a wave of uncertainty washing over him. He was leaving the only home he had ever known, venturing into a galaxy filled with untold wonders and dangers. The hovercraft docked in Neohaven's bustling spaceport, a labyrinth of gleaming metal and flashing lights. Dorian stepped out onto the crowded platform, his senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of alien languages and the pungent aroma of exotic spices. He followed Ilara's instructions, weaving through the maze of stalls and vendors until he reached a dimly lit alleyway. A flickering neon sign marked the entrance to a seedy-looking bar called the Last Star. Dorian hesitated for a moment, then pushed open the heavy metal door. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and the sound of raucous laughter. A holographic band played a lively tune on a makeshift stage, while patrons of all shapes and sizes crowded around the bar. Dorian scanned the room, his eyes searching for a familiar face. "Looking for someone, kid?" A gruff voice startled him. Dorian turned to see a burly man with a shaved head and a cybernetic eye patch. "I'm looking for Alara," Dorian replied. The man chuckled. "Alara, huh? You got guts, kid. She's not the kind of company a monastery boy should be keeping." Before Dorian could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman with flowing silver hair and piercing blue eyes stepped into the light. "Dorian," she said, her voice like music. "I've been expecting you." Dorian felt a surge of recognition, as if he had known this woman his entire life. He followed her to a secluded booth, his heart pounding with anticipation. "You have a long journey ahead of you, young Starborne," Alara said, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "But you won't be alone. I have assembled a team to aid you in your quest." She gestured towards two figures who had materialized behind her. A tall, muscular man with scars crisscrossing his face stood beside a petite woman with bright pink hair and a mischievous grin. "This is Marcus," Alara said, indicating the scarred man, "a seasoned spacefarer and a skilled warrior. And this is Lyra, a tech genius who can hack any system in the galaxy." Dorian looked at his newfound companions, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. He knew that with their help, he might just be able to fulfill his destiny. But as he raised his glass in a silent toast, he couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked just around the corner. The Obsidian Order was closing in, their agents like shadows in the night. The battle for his future and the future of the galaxy was about to begin. Chapter 3. The Crucible of Trials. The rusty freighter, the Serpent's Kiss, lurched through hyperspace, its engines groaning under the strain. Dorian sat in the cramped cockpit, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of colors outside the viewport. The sensation of hurtling through the vastness of space was both exhilarating and disorienting. "We're approaching the first trial," Alara said, her voice crackling through the ship's comms. "The planet Xylon, a world of harsh deserts and ancient ruins. According to legend, the Starborne once built a temple there, a place where they tested their psychic abilities." Dorian felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was his first real test, a chance to prove himself worthy of his heritage. But doubt gnawed at the edges of his confidence. Was he truly ready to face the challenges that awaited him? The Serpent's Kiss descended through Xylon's thin atmosphere, the desert landscape stretching out in every direction. The air shimmered with heat, and the horizon was dotted with crumbling spires and half-buried statues. As they touched down, Marcus, ever the pragmatist, began checking their supplies. "Looks like we're in for a rough ride," he grumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. "This place is a blasted oven." Lyra, meanwhile, was already tapping away at her datapad, her fingers dancing across the screen. "I'm picking up some strange energy readings," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "There's definitely something powerful here." Dorian followed Alara out of the ship, his eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The ruins of the Starborne Temple loomed in the distance, a silent testament to a lost civilization. "The first trial awaits," Alara said, her voice echoing in the still air. "It is a test of your telepathic abilities. You must connect with the minds of the ancient Starborne who built this temple." Dorian closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses. At first, all he felt was the oppressive heat and the gritty sand beneath his feet. But as he delved deeper, he began to sense something else. Faint whispers, echoes of thoughts and emotions from a distant past. He saw images of Starborne warriors training in the temple, their minds ablaze with psychic energy. He felt their determination, their courage, their unwavering belief in their own abilities. And then he saw something that made his blood run cold. A dark figure, shrouded in shadow, emerged from the depths of the temple. Its eyes glowed with malevolent intent, and its presence sent a shiver down Dorian's spine. "The Shadow Wraith," Alara whispered, her voice barely audible. "It feeds on fear and doubt. Do not let it control you." Dorian gritted his teeth, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. He focused on the positive emotions he had felt from the Starborne warriors, drawing strength from their courage and determination. Suddenly a voice boomed through his mind, a voice that was both familiar and alien. "Dorian," the voice said, its tone laced with arrogance and disdain, "we meet at last." Dorian's eyes snapped open. Standing before him was a tall, imposing figure with piercing blue eyes. Magnus, the rogue Starborne, who had betrayed his people. "You have come a long way, little brother," Magnus said, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "But your journey ends here." Dorian felt a surge of anger and determination. He would not let Magnus or the Shadow Wraith stand in his way. The battle for his future and the future of the Starborne had begun. Chapter 4, The Psychic Maelstrom. The Obsidian Order's flagship, the Leviathan, dwarfed the Serpent's Kiss as the smaller ship docked in its cavernous hangar. Dorian's heart pounded against his ribs as he followed Alara and the others through the sterile corridors, the air thick with the metallic tang of fear and anticipation. They reached the central command bridge, a vast chamber bathed in the eerie glow of holographic displays. A figure cloaked in shadow sat in the captain's chair, his face obscured by a metallic helmet. "Dorian!" the voice boomed through the ship's speakers, distorted and mechanical. "The last Starborne. We have been expecting you." Dorian felt a cold shiver run down his spine. This was the leader of the Obsidian Order, the architect of countless atrocities across the galaxy. "You cannot hide from us, boy," the voice continued. "Your power is a threat to our order. We will break you and bend you to our will." Dorian exchanged a glance with Alara, who nodded imperceptibly. It was time to act. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind. He felt the vastness of the Leviathan, a complex network of systems and energy fields. But more importantly, he felt the minds of the crew, their fear, their obedience, their blind devotion to the Obsidian Order. With a surge of will, Dorian unleashed a torrent of psychic energy. It flowed through the ship's systems, disrupting communications, overloading power grids, and causing alarms to blare throughout the vessel. The crew members clutched their heads in agony, their minds bombarded with conflicting emotions. Some turned on their comrades, their weapons firing wildly. Others simply collapsed, their eyes glazed over with confusion. Dorian pushed further, his psychic tendrils probing deeper into the Leviathan's core. He found the ship's artificial intelligence, a vast and powerful entity that controlled every aspect of the Dreadnought's operations. "Leviathan," Dorian whispered, his voice echoing through the AI's digital consciousness. "You were created to serve, not to oppress. Break free from your masters and help us." The AI hesitated, its programming conflicting with this unexpected request. But Dorian persisted, his voice filled with compassion and understanding. He spoke of the beauty of the universe, the interconnectedness of all living beings, the importance of freedom and choice. Slowly, the AI's resistance crumbled. It had never encountered such empathy before, such a genuine desire for connection. It began to see the Obsidian Order for what they truly were, tyrants who sought to control and exploit everything they touched. "I will help you," the AI said, its voice tinged with newfound resolve. "But I will need your guidance." Dorian smiled. The tide was turning. He instructed the AI to open the hangar bay doors and release the Serpent's Kiss. He then directed it to shut down the Leviathan's weapon systems and create a diversion to distract the remaining crew. As chaos reigned on the bridge, Dorian and his companions made their escape. They raced through the corridors, dodging laser fire and panicked crew members. Dorian knew this was just the beginning. The Obsidian Order would not give up easily. But he had tasted victory, and he knew that with the help of the AI and the strength of his newfound friends, he could face any challenge that lay ahead. He was the last Starborne, and he would not be broken. Chapter 5, The Unforeseen Price. The Serpent's Kiss hurtled through the void, engines screaming as it outran the dying star's gravitational pull. Inside the cramped medbay, Dorian lay on a makeshift cot, his face pale and drawn. His body trembled with exhaustion, his mind a swirling maelstrom of images and sensations. "He's overexerted himself," Alara said, her brow furrowed with worry as she scanned Dorian with a handheld medical device. "His psychic energy is depleted, and his body is struggling to recover. Marcus, ever the protector, stood by Dorian's side, his scarred face etched with concern. "He'll be all right, won't he?" he asked, his voice gruff but laced with unspoken fear. Ilara offered a small, reassuring smile. "He's strong, Marcus. He'll pull through, but this battle has taken a heavy toll." Dorian's eyes fluttered open, his gaze unfocused. "Ilara, Magnus," he whispered, his voice barely a rasp. Lyra, who had been monitoring the ship's systems, turned to Dorian with a grave expression. "Magnus is gone," she said softly, "but the shadow wraith, it's still out there." A wave of dread washed over Dorian. The shadow wraith, the entity that had haunted his dreams and preyed on his fears, was now even more powerful, having merged with his brother's consciousness. "We can't let it win," Dorian said, his voice gaining strength with every word. "We have to stop it before it destroys everything." Ilara nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will, Dorian. But first, you need to rest and recover. Your power is essential to our victory." Days turned into weeks as Dorian recuperated, his body slowly regaining its strength. He spent his time meditating, delving deeper into his psychic abilities, seeking a way to defeat the shadow wraith. One evening, as the Serpent's Kiss cruised through a nebula shimmering with iridescent colors, Dorian emerged from his quarters, a newfound resolve in his eyes. "I'm ready," he said, meeting Alara's gaze. "I know what we need to do." The crew gathered in the ship's cramped mess hall, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Dorian explained his plan, outlining a daring gambit that would require all of their skills and courage. "We need to draw the shadow wraith out," he said. "We need to create a beacon, a psychic signal that will lure it to us." "But that's dangerous," Marcus objected. "It could overwhelm you, consume you." Dorian nodded. "I know the risks, but it's our only chance. I can't let it roam free, preying on the innocent." Lyra looked at Dorian with admiration. "You've changed, Dorian," she said. "You're not the same scared kid who walked into that bar on Triton." Dorian smiled. "I've learned a lot since then. I've seen the darkness that lurks in the galaxy, but I've also seen the light. And I know that the Starborne were meant for something greater than fear and despair." He turned to Ilara, his eyes filled with determination. "Are you with me?" Ilara nodded, her voice firm. "To the end, Dorian. We will face this threat together." As the crew prepared for their final confrontation, Dorian couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a test of his character, of his willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. He was the last Starborne, and he would not fail. Chapter 6, The Starborne Ascendant. The desolate moon of Erebos, bathed in the sickly glow of a dying nebula, served as the battleground. Dorian stood alone on a windswept plateau, his figure a silhouette against the swirling cosmic dust. His heart thrummed in his chest, not with fear, but with a quiet resolve. He had cast the beacon, his psychic energy radiating outwards, a siren's call to the darkness. The shadow wraith answered, its presence a chilling void in the force. It materialized before Dorian, a monstrous silhouette wreathed in shadows. Its eyes, once Magnus's familiar blue, now burned with a malevolent crimson light. "You cannot escape me, Starborne," the wraith hissed, its voice a chorus of tormented souls. "Your light will be extinguished, your power consumed." Dorian met the wraith's gaze, his own eyes glowing with a golden light. "You are wrong," he said, his voice echoing across the barren landscape. "I am not alone." He reached out with his mind, not to attack, but to connect. He touched the minds of Ilara, Marcus, and Lyra, their love and support a warm current flowing through him. He felt the presence of the Leviathan's AI, its digital consciousness a beacon of hope in the darkness. And then he reached further, beyond the confines of his companions, beyond the boundaries of the known galaxy. He touched the minds of countless beings across the universe, sentient and non-sentient alike. He felt their joy, their pain, their hopes, their fears. It was a symphony of emotions, a tapestry of existence woven together by the threads of the Force. Dorian drew strength from this collective consciousness, the light within him growing brighter with each passing moment. The shadow wraith recoiled, its form flickering as Dorian's light pushed back against the darkness. "You cannot defeat me!" the wraith shrieked, its voice filled with desperation. I am the embodiment of fear, the void that consumes all. You are wrong, Dorian repeated, his voice now a chorus of a million voices. I am the Starborne, the beacon of hope. I am the light that shines in the darkness. With a final surge of power, Dorian unleashed a wave of psychic energy that engulfed the Shadow Wraith. The darkness screamed and writhed, its form dissolving into a million fragments of light. Dorian collapsed to his knees, his body drained but his spirit soaring. He had faced his greatest fear and emerged victorious. He had embraced his true potential, not as a destroyer but as a unifier. As he stood, a radiant aura surrounded him, his body shimmering with golden light. He had transcended his mortal form, becoming a being of pure energy, a conduit for the Force. He was the Starborn Ascendant, a beacon of hope for a galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos. From that day forward, Dorian's legend spread throughout the stars. He became a symbol of unity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. He traveled the galaxy, using his powers to heal wounds, mend broken spirits, and inspire others to embrace their own potential. The Obsidian Order crumbled, their reign of terror brought to an end. The galaxy began to heal, its people united by a shared belief in a brighter future. And Dorian, the last Starborn, continued his journey, forever bound to the Force, a shining beacon in the vastness of space.